Hello and welcome to Hollywood at Home from Arizona Public Media. I'm Victoria Lucas. Folk music. It exploded onto the music scene in the early 1960s, then slowly lost its luster during the mind-altered rocking days of the 70s. Tonight's movie, A Mighty Wind, from director Christopher Guest, is a warm-hearted mockumentary tribute to the folk song writers, singers, and music groups during those days of innocence. It's the story of three groups that reunite for the first time in decades to perform in a televised retrospective concert. As the show date approaches, apprehension sets in, romances are rekindled, and none of these characters will ever be quite the same. You may already know director Christopher Guest. He co-wrote and starred in This Is Spinal Tap, which parodied musicians and bands of the hard rock 70s. He also directed and acted in Best in Show, spoofing high-level professional dog shows, and Waiting for Guffman, which did the same for community theater. Tonight's film follows that same satirical tradition. Guest said, "I'm interested in the behavior of these aging, impassioned, you might even say obsessed, folk musicians. The joke isn't that they can't play. The joke is that they take themselves very, very seriously." Yet Guest is careful never to let satire and parody devolve into ridicule. As in his earlier movies, Guest has fun with the characters, some of whom are downright eccentric, but he allows them their dignity, and he clearly cares about them, leading to some undeniably moving moments. Now, if it sometimes seems while you're watching that the characters don't always know what they're going to say before they say it, that's because very often they don't. And that's because Christopher Guest has an unusual way of crafting his movies. For one thing, he usually casts from among the same group of talented improvisational actors. By knowing ahead of time who will play the various roles, he doesn't need to write a conventional screenplay with specific dialogue and action. Instead, he and co-writer Eugene Levy can create just a basic story and backgrounds of the necessary characters to make it work. Guest explains, "We know what will happen, but not how it will happen. Then I get the actors together and talk with them about their characters, their histories, and the dynamics between them. Every scene is structured, but it's not written, no dialogue at all. Then, with only minimal rehearsal, we start shooting." Well, that kind of high-wire act requires special actors, and not just stand-up improv artists, but ensemble performers who can be completely in sync with one another. For A Mighty Wind, Guest assembled a veteran cast from his earlier pictures so that every actor would be a supporting actor in the sense that all support each other. The musical acts for the reunion show are uncannily similar to groups we remember from old record albums and TV shows like Hootenanny. Harry Shearer, Michael McKean, and Christopher Guest are the Folksmen, a Kingston trio-styled group that never quite made it, scoring one modest hit before fading away. And yes, they're the same actors who comprised the band in Spinal Tap. As McKean put it, same guys, different hair. Then there's the Main Street Singers. They're a perky, folk pop, New Christy Minstrels type band led by Jane Lynch, John Michael Higgins, and Parker Posey. And rounding out the trio, there's Mitch and Mickey, played by Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara, an Ian and Sylvia-esque duo who were once famous folk lovebirds before their marriage tanked. Bob Balaban is the driving force behind the reunion concert, and Fred Willard, the hilarious color commentator in Best in Show, provides another scene-stealing performance as an obnoxious manager. The film features a dozen original folk songs in the style of the 1960s, all written by the actors. And the musical parodies are so spot on that you have to pay close attention to catch the twists in the lyrics. One favorite is Blood on the Coal, a song by the Folksmen that seems, at first, to be a typical disaster song like the Wreck of Old 97. Except the train doesn't just jump the tracks. It then plunges down a mine shaft and kills all the coal miners, too. Then there's the catchy Main Street Singers song in which a potato-faced baby grows into a young woman who catches the eye of the local sheriff, whose idea of elopement is to cart her off in the back of his paddy wagon. All the songs were performed live during the shoot, with no lip-syncing to pre-recorded tracks, which meant that several cast members had to become skilled at singing harmonies and even learn how to play a new musical instrument, as with Catherine O'Hara on the autoharp and Parker Posey on mandolin. Later, at a press conference, the actors talked about what it took to pull off this special kind of film, what Eugene Levy called working without a net. Michael McKean said, "To be able to go out on a limb and improvise, the most important thing is to feel safe, to know that there's no right or wrong, only degrees of better and best." Christopher establishes such a feeling of trust on the set, it extends all the way through cast and crew. Parker Posey called it the most relaxed set I have ever worked on. And Catherine O'Hara added, "Chris is like a good parent who lets a child fly free, but guides them. You're shaped by what's in the script and by what the other actors do, but you feel like you've come up with everything yourself." Bob Balaban simply said, "It's always scary, but it's the good kind of scary." Still, despite all that harmony on the set, Christopher Guest did have one, shall we say, unusual problem on this movie, one that required some diplomacy. He was approached by a musical legend eager to be in the picture, and he had to say no. As he remembered, "I went to school with Arlo Guthrie and played mandolin in his band. I love the man. But we had to create our own world. If real people are in the movie, the audience is pulled out of the story." When asked how he turned Guthrie down, Guest deadpanned, "I told him, not in this lifetime, and then I changed my phone number." By the end of filming, director Guest had some 60 hours of improvised footage to cut down into a 90-minute film. But as he said, you figure out pretty quickly what you need to tell the story. If a scene doesn't help us get where we want to go, it's on the cutting room floor, even if it's funny. Besides, he added, if it was a really good scene, it'll end up on the DVD. A Mighty Wind did well among critics and at the box office. One of its songs, A Kiss at the End of the Rainbow, written by Michael McKean and his actress wife Annette O'Toole, was nominated for an Academy Award and won a Grammy. So now please sit back and enjoy a movie that manages to be satiric and affectionate as it sticks playful pins into the folk music movement of the 60s. From Warner Brothers Pictures and Castle Rock Entertainment, it's A Mighty Wind.